G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and in today's episode I want to look at 3D printing and what I think the relationship is going to be between Games Workshop and 3D printing going forward. So first things first, is 3D printing at the point where it has replaced a company like Games Workshop? And the simple short answer to that is no. But they are on the cusp. So let me explain my philosophy here. So when it comes to 3D printing, obviously it puts the power in the hands of the customer because you can pick exactly what you want, make it to whatever size, scale, when you want it. You can make any conversion parts that you need, pick and choose what you like. It's a very friendly technology in that regard. My big concern, and the reason why I think it is not taking off yet, is because it is just not customer friendly enough. Because the main preferred method of making miniatures in 28mm for people is to resin print them. I believe that filament printing, that's where you have the big long spool of filament, like the printer on the bottom right in this image, that is fantastic for when you are producing terrain. But if you want to produce a picture-perfect Primark, you need a resin printer. Okay, two different technologies for two different applications. And unfortunately, resin printing is a much nastier medium to work with. You have noxious chemicals, nasty fumes, very, very strong cleaning agents, and obviously not suited to, say, small apartments, places with pets and children where they can get access to them, knock them over, that kind of thing. There are definite flaws with resin printing. And so once that gets ironed out, I think that is honestly what would be, quote unquote, the death knell for something like Games Workshop. So at what point does that happen, I suppose, is the question that we really have to ask in this episode. Well, I think in all honesty, once a printer becomes more of a plug and play option, and right now they're not. You have all these different slicing profiles, these different little quirks and tips that you can apply, and slight subtle changes you can make, changes to how you support the model, etc., etc. The average person does not have time for that. So the software needs to become even more intuitive than it already is. In fact, I would say far more intuitive than it already is, because whilst the current software is good, you do get print failures. People don't want failures. People want immediate driving success. And I think the technology is getting good enough that you can almost guarantee perfect success every time. We're not there yet, but we are getting closer. So that is going to be a huge component here. People also don't want the fuss of having to go in and pick up all their models and clean them and wash them in isopropyl alcohol, etc., etc. What people want is the ability to take a cartridge, like on their regular paper printer at home, plug it into the side of their machine. No pouring of bottles and mixing of bottles and running the machine in a certain temperature room and all of that. Nope, they just plug this cartridge in the side, hit go, machine adjusts itself, has its own heating or cooling, adjusts all the parameters, and it will take your material from that cartridge and use it to print your model, and it will self-clean the model and everything, all contained within the machine. All you do is come along at the end of the process and pull your finished model out and maybe remove the supports. That is going to be the point when a printer overtakes Games Workshop, the company. And the technology is not there yet. There are printers that utilize things like cartridge systems, like Formlabs. They use a cartridge system in their 3D printers. Their cartridges are prohibitively expensive, and the printers are not so much superior at what they do that I would take one over a Anycubic Photon M3 or something, or a Creality Halot Light, or a Elegoo Saturn S, any of these sorts of printers that are currently in that Resin 3D environment, because they are just so much cheaper and I can just work with the technology to get the results I want to achieve. For the average person, though, they were going to, in the future, want to be able to pick a model, any model. They don't want to have to repair it. They want it to be perfect when they get it offline, or when they get it from online and download it. They want to then take that model, put it straight onto their 3D printer. They don't want to go through a slicing process. They don't want to take out a USB, bring it over to their computer, plug it in, etc. No, people want to be able to do it on something like their phone. Oh, I like that model. Click and print, and it just goes straight to the printer. And some manufacturers are moving into that area at the moment. I know that Creality, in particular, who I've done quite a few reviews on their printers, they're sort of my main manufacturer that I go to. And they've even supplied me with some for review purposes. So, in pure transparency here. And in the past, they have introduced their own sort of cloud network where you can upload models to or pull models from, but you are locked into essentially what has already been put on there for the purposes of that. So if someone sliced it, put supports on, etc., it's a lot harder for you to modify that on your phone on the go. As opposed to you're sitting there at work on your lunch break, you're scrolling through 3D models, you go, oh man, this model looks awesome. I want one of those for at home. Buy and print. It's not quite that easy yet, but if it gets there, that's a huge deal. So what could a company like Games Workshop do in this situation? Well, I think they're possibly hedging their bets a little at the moment, so obviously increasing prices, yada yada, all that normal stuff. The end is not around the corner from today. I think it's somewhere in the mid-2030s, personally, probably the late 2030s. And I say this as someone who has worked in the plastics industry for years and is actually recently moved over to becoming an instructor in the plastics and composite space for university. So this technology is improving constantly. The materials are getting better, they're getting stronger, they're getting more user-friendly. And I think that transitional period heading towards 2040 is going to be very important, because that's the point where Games Workshop is going to have to change their business strategy. Right now, they are throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, regards TV shows, computer games, board games, Funko Pop vinyls, collectible toys in the form of like 9-inch tall miniatures that are posable, like Gundam style. They're trying it all at the moment. Okay, there's bed sheets, there's candles. Like they're taking to, because they're looking for these, how are ways we can keep our revenue up? How are ways that we can demonstrate this continual unacceptable levels of growth in order to please the shareholder, to keep investment high? And all of these sort of things come into account. I think personally that they'll be very smart. They may be doing this, I doubt it, but they would be very smart to start looking into doing a deal or a partnership with different 3D print manufacturers and starting to design their own STLs and really coming up with a printer system with a manufacturer and being able to sell that to the general public. And going, hey, this is a Games Workshop affiliated 3D printing brand. We're embracing the technology, and we're going to put certain products onto this technology. And the best type of products to do this with would be the Horus Heresy range to start with, and all your conversion accessories. So rather than having to stock your, heavy bolter upgrades, your Legion shoulder pads, your helmets, that sort of thing, what they should be doing is, instead of selling that stock and wasting the time of creating molds for it and, all of that, trying to keep it in stock, which is it just never happens, okay? The amount of times that a product is instantly sold out or out of stock, or they're just rotating through their stock cycles now because they have too many products and not enough warehousing space or manufacturing capacity. If they move all that minor little fiddly bits into a 3D printed service where it's like, hey, anyone can get this, you can just 3D print this yourself at home. Okay, it's not breaking their back of the convenience of their current plastic kits, okay? It's not competing with the tactical squad at home. So they're not ripping money out of their own pocket. What they're doing is they're taking away that added headache, that extra hassle that Games Workshop has currently, where they have to basically run the gauntlet of keeping things in stock and supplying all these little bits and pieces in order to please the customer because they've got all these different sub-factions. They could move a lot of the conversion parts for many ranges, 30k especially. I think it's primarily where it should be trialed, and then move that over into 40k in Age of Sigmar. People will then be able to make those shoulder pads and helmet upgrades and all that at home, and they'll be content. And you could even offer a boutique 3D print service, so like something like a company like Shapeways does. Games Workshop could have a service where they say, we don't stock this model, but click on this link, enter your details, this person will print the model for you. And it'll be a affiliated manufacturer, obviously of some repute, for the company who can do that and supply it to the customer at the end of the process. And that way Games Workshop gets to design the model, own the IP, own that design type, and they don't have to supply the physical stock themselves. They don't have to cast it themselves. They don't have to make a die for it themselves, or all the extra expense associated with that. It also means that miniatures that they know they want to create but would never do it because it might be untenable or unfeasible as a product line, could be certain special characters, things like that. Well, they could do a design for it, throw it out to the wild and say, we're not going to make this in plastic, but you can make this for yourself if you're curious. This is our sculpt from our designers with our rules that fits into the range, and it's now given to you, Joe Public. That is something that they very much could do. And if they did that, that would be a fantastic service to themselves and to the general public. Additionally to all of this, of course, they need to look at how they do their rules system, because they can transition to becoming a company that specializes in designing the gameplay for their systems for eventually a 3D printed marketplace when plastic injection molding gets overtaken. And that will happen at one point because the market is just not that, flexible when it comes to price over simplicity. People are simple creatures. People love to have things easily within their grasp, and the satisfaction of convenience is a huge thing for humans. If people have the option of buying models that they're FOMO at the moment, they can't get the bloody models, but even if they could, they have to wait months or possibly weeks to months, that is, for the miniatures to come back into stock, because Games Workshop just doesn't produce enough of them. There's FOMO, people go out, they buy 500 boxes at once, and people miss out, especially people in further away regional areas who don't have access to the local store that they can just pop down to on a Saturday morning to pick up a pre-order, or to make a pre-order, okay? In that instance, people are going to gravitate towards 3D printing. If you have a 3D STL, it has an infinite supply. Anyone can get it, and plastic doesn't, and that is what will kill plastic eventually. Not in 5 minutes, not in 5 years, but in 15 to 20 years, yes. Okay? The only thing that would shift that trend is if supply became far less restricted, and that there is a far greater number of items that is actually produced for cheaper. I've got no script, by the way. I'm winging this entire episode, if you couldn't tell. If items become significantly cheaper, then people are willing to abide by the fact they may have to wait a few days to get their gratification because they get the item so hassle-free, so carefree. Currently, they pay a lot of money for the item and get a nice long wait to go with it, and they've still got to go through the whole process of building, assembly, etc., 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 which for some people is not a part of the hobby they like. Others love it. I love building miniatures. Some people prefer just the painting. Some people just prefer the playing. And that is a huge thing, right? So I think of 3D printing very much like I think of the music industry, or the relationship between Games Workshop and 3D printing like the music industry. Piracy was so huge when I was a kid, okay? When I was a teenager, going through the late 90s, early 2000s, had the LimeWire craze, get a virus on your computer, a song on your computer. you would go through all of that rigmarole to get music, because otherwise, at least in Australia, you paid $30 for a CD, and let's face it, half the bands out there, yeah, there was one or two hit songs that you really wanted off the CD, and the rest of it was trash. Not for me though. I collected like Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. So all the old albums are good then. All those old albums. But the thing was that because of the cost and nature of that system and the difficulty in who wants to be sitting there, right? Teenage girls especially. I remember my cousins growing up. The girls would sit around listening to music on like a Friday night, and they'd be on, what was that other social media thing before Facebook that was sort of huge at the time? It'll come to me. And they'd be on that, like chat forums with their friends and stuff, and they'd be wanting to listen to music or want to play music, and it was just easier to play it off their hard drive through something like iTunes or LimeWire, because they didn't have to go around and get the CD, put the CD into the computer, hope the computer could read the CD, So the music companies cottoned onto this, and eventually they created cheap streaming services for their music, in some cases free, and in other cases very, very cheaply billed. So you get things like, Amazon Music, or I think the big one now is realistically Spotify. And because they provided such a cheap, simple, easy-to-use service, people gravitated towards it, and piracy for music significantly dropped. Hasn't vanished, but it's significantly dropped because people want convenience, and it is a bit inconvenient to go to a torrent site and go through and get some viruses, versus the ability to pick exactly the song you want from a reputable source and get it through these other sites. Games Workshop is sort of in a similar spot if you compare them to TV. So in TV's case, something like a Game of Thrones. Oh, it's paywalled behind a certain channel that you might not be able to get in your country, or it's a certain service in your country, and who wants to pay, say, I think it was Foxtel in Australia, it was something ridiculous per month. You had to get cable TV, essentially. And why pay for that for, 1 or 2 episodes a month of a TV show? There was not enough on there to justify the service to many people. Therefore, people didn't want to go through that, so therefore people just pirated, especially because there is just such a glut or saturation of streaming services in the market currently, all thinking that they can all have the majority share of the pie because these companies are run by idiots. And that sounds very, very harsh to say, but that's the truth of it. They're all convinced that their one brand is going to be the one that wins out when they're all actually on an equal footing and all have lucrative IPs. No one company has such great IP that everyone else is going to gravitate their way. That's just the reality of it. And that's kind of how it feels at Games Workshop. They're like these streaming giants for movies at the moment. They feel they've got the one IP that beats all the competition, whilst all their competition is behaving more like a music industry, producing cheaper games that are, like Battletech. Battletech is a fantastic game. It's cheap, easy to get into. Okay, Star Wars Legion, cheap, easy to get to, fun game. Okay, Bolt Action, relatively cheap, easy to get into, fun game. All the competition is like this. Nobody else is making games quite like Games Workshop. And Games Workshop is here going, really expensive, but we're selling you a lifestyle. It's like, that's great. That's not sustainable. Okay? And people may think it is, but I really would put my career on the line here saying it is not long-term sustainable. And I really do think that by around mid-2030s, 2040s, we are going to be seeing the effects of this because of competition growing in the marketplace. But if Games Workshop can come out with a cheap subscription model for supply miniatures, they could have something like a White Dwarf subscription, but for miniatures. Hey, if you have our subscription service, you get a free STL each month. And hey, if you have 6 months in a row, you get a bonus STL. And if you have 12 months in a row, you get another bonus STL. And you've been with us for 3 years. Here's, an STL of a certain unit. And there is nothing stopping them from having some sort of anti-piracy thing to stop the sharing. But if you make your service cheap enough for people, they won't pirate it. Because if a person goes, oh, I can go on to a slightly iffy website and get this same file, or I can pay just $1 a month to Games Workshop to get it, they'll probably just pay the $1. Because I know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get, professional support from the company as opposed to this aftermarket person. And of course, at that point, if you can combine that with 3D printers, which are entirely plug and play, you just hit the button and it dispenses a miniature a couple of hours later, and the person smiles because they have a perfect miniature, completely clean, ready to be painted. When that day hits, Games Workshop's current business model dies. It dies a very quick death. But anyway, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Obviously, this will probably get a hyperbolic title. I haven't thought of one yet, but maybe something like, will 3D printing kill Games Workshop? Plastic industry expert comments. Something like that. That's clickbaity. But it's true. Anyway, back with the other circle. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.